So I'm going to ask two questions, and then we're going to open it up to students to ask a couple. But the two questions would be, part of the frustration is you've got two sides, one saying only cut and not raising taxes, and one saying you have to raise taxes. It has to be a combination. How do you view the capital gains tax, for example, which has been hotly debated as to whether that should be lowered or not, or raised, I'm sorry. How do you view the capital gains rate? For those who don't know, the capital gains rate is the long-term rate you pay on investment, anything over a year, and it's lower than your ordinary income rate.
Well, again, if you look underneath the hood, capital gains and dividends are just another subsidy from the young to the old, and I'll tell you why. The average 60-year-old has 5 times the net worth of the average 30-year-old. So you got the 30-year-old plumber paying a full income tax rate, and you got the 65-year-old coupon clipper, or 60-year-old in my case, paying a much lower rate on dividend and capital gains. So frankly, I'd like to see them indexed up to an ordinary income level. However, and again, this is just my own view, is I'd like to see the corporate tax rate cut to 0. And before everybody shrieks, you're double taxing them if you do otherwise. Secondly, if you cut the corporate tax rate to 0, a lot of corporations' tax rate wouldn't be cut because they're already building plants in Puerto Rico and Ireland and doing fancy leasebacks and tax shelters to get it to 0, and you'd have economic actors making economic decisions instead of tax-oriented decisions, and I think it would be very good for the economy. But at the very least, there is no justification in my mind to have capital gains and dividends at a lower rate than ordinary income.
That's an excellent point. The final question for all of us to talk about is priority. Can you put up slide 20 of Stan's slides on defense spending? So there's going to have to be some decisions made. Again, this is not a political discussion, it's just to sort of say facts, but the U.S. government spends more on defense than the next 13 countries combined. Defense is 20% of the federal budget. Education is 2%. The estimated cost of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and Pakistan, just the CBO's number is 2.5 trillion. That's their estimate, but the Brown University study that sort of adds all the other costs like bringing warriors home and what happens with injuries and the debt on the money we borrow to finance the wars, their number is $6 trillion. $6
trillion for?
$6 trillion for the cost of all the war, all in. They started at 3.4 and then they
Not per year though.
No, total,
yeah.
Total. So I heard this great quote on our military strategy, and it made me think of talking with you. And the quote is, our schools are crumbling and we want to teach everyone in the world a lesson by bombing them. So my question to Geoffrey is, can we afford to fix schools when our economy isn't sailing, our infrastructure isn't in great shape, and our national debt is really getting a hold of us? What do you think?
Well, it's always interesting to me because I know a number of secretaries of defense, and as soon as they get out of that position, they say education's the most important thing for national defense. And I always wondered, why didn't you say that when you were in the office, right? So people do realize this. If you were to ask me, when I travel around America, what am I most worried about? What scares me? It is the hundreds of thousands and indeed millions of young people that I know are not going to be able to fit into our labor market, and we don't have a clue of what we're going to do, and we've just decided we're going to lock up huge numbers of these folks. I think that there is a reasonable reduction we can make in lots of federal spending. The military would be one place to reinvest at home. I think what people don't believe is that the investment will do any good. Right? So, and in many cases, you heard me sort of railing about education. You put the money in, are you actually going to get something out? And I think that we've got to change this equation where you actually know this investment is going to pay off and it's going to, I think, make the country better prepared. I will tell you, if you look around internationally, many of the nations we're competing with right now are making investments in their young people and in the future of their young people, understanding that that's really where this next war is going to be fought. It's going to be fought on an intellectual level, and I think we just haven't prepared our country correctly. There's huge amounts of waste in lots of places in this country. There's huge amounts of waste in the military. And do I think we could cut that budget? I do believe we could cut the budget.
Last night I was at Berkeley. Now, keep me out how stupid. I went to Berkeley without Jeff Cannon. I was there by myself, of all places. And
What does that say about me? That's right, though.
I'm sure you'll be shocked to know that the defense spending thing I had in the appendix, so someone in the audience before I got to it just ripped my head off for criticizing the old and beating them up and what about defense. So here's my view on the defense budget. Do we need to be spending this kind of money on defense? Of course not. Absolutely not. I'm the one who put the chart up there to show you we're spending more than 13 countries combined, and absolutely we should cut defense spending. But I want to show you another thing. Remember how much I said was spent on Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare? The growth, the next 10 years, $785 billion. If you cut defense spending to zero, the growth in entitlements, not entitlements, the growth in entitlements the next 10 years will eat it all up. It's all gone. So should we cut defense spending, David? Absolutely we should. But it's minuscule compared to what's going to go on in entitlements the next 20 or 30 years, and that's what you need to understand.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Let's hear it for him.